Today we're going to talk about micro-irrigation. You can see our schedule here of our Saving Water in 15 Minutes webinar, and that is starting today. So we have a set of 4 classes that'll talk about different ways to save water on your lawn and landscape in regards to your irrigation system. So thanks for joining me. I'm Ann Yasalanis. I'm the Residential Horticulture Extension Agent and Master Gardener Coordinator with IFAS Extension in Polk County. And our webinars are offered by myself and Julie Shelb, our Florida Friendly Landscaping Coordinator, and we have Master Gardener volunteers. So today we're going to talk quickly about the advantages of using micro-irrigation, the different types that you will find, a little bit about layout and assembly, and some of the maintenance that comes along with a micro-irrigation system. So what is micro-irrigation? It's a way to water plants that uses low flow and low pressure rates. There's a variety of applications and emitters that can be used in micro-irrigation. You can find it in many retail garden centers, big box stores, irrigation companies that are around have them as well. They can install those systems to your existing irrigation system or make changes in your landscape and retrofit that way. Or if you don't have irrigation but are interested in it, micro-irrigation is a good option for you there as well. It's very flexible in its use. It cannot be used to water lawns. So that's one of the main things. So we're talking potted plants, vegetable gardens, any mulch beds, trees, those sorts of things. Those are the only places we can use micro-irrigation, but you can see all of the advantages. One of the main ones is that it does reduce water use. And then because of the way that it applies the water, you can reduce issues with disease and weeds as well. Additionally, it is unrestricted in our watering codes. So if you are familiar with the watering codes, you know that you have a house number and your house number indicates which day of the week you can apply water. Micro-irrigation is exempt, so you can use it any day. Although, you know, we still want to be mindful that we don't want to overwater our plants and water in the middle of the day where we lose a lot of water to evaporation anyway. But that's helpful if you have something like a vegetable garden that needs more frequent watering than some of your landscape beds. It's also really easy to expand and adapt and make changes as you make changes in your landscape. So these are the types of micro-irrigation that you'll find, and we're going to discuss all of these in detail. Whoa, that was a very loud boom. Sorry about that. I can't do anything about that though. Okay, so first we're going to talk about drip emitters, and they're used for plants that are spaced far apart. So you can see the example here has containerized plants, and you can see in the container there are drip emitters in the container. So they're installed directly into the main tubing line, or they're attached, as in this photo, using what's called spaghetti tubing. So that means it's thin and small, and it goes from the main, more large diameter tubing into the container, or, you know, it basically makes it so you can reach further distances with your emitters. So like the pots here, if you follow it back to the bottom of the photo where you can't see, it's attaching to a larger line that's holding the water. So if you have plant spacing that's not uniform, that's a great way to use those drip emitters. This is inline tubing. So the drip tubing is manufactured with the inline emitters. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to compete with thunder today. And they are manufactured so that the holes that are in the line are spaced at a specific distance apart, 6 inches, 12 inches, that sort of thing. So it can be placed under soil surface or mulch, and so it's completely hidden. It is really important that the holes are at the base of the plant. So you can see here, typically it's used in annual planting beds. So if you want to see this in use, a good example would be the city of Lakeland. They put this in their annual plant beds, And the way that they plant is at each emitter hole is where a plant goes. So uniform spacing is really important with this type of irrigation emitter. This is a bubbler. It's often used to establish large plants like trees, but you can use it on containers or shrubs. They can be installed into the main tubing line, like you see here, or you can also use those spaghetti stakes or smaller tubes to reach them as well. Many people are familiar with this one. This is a micro sprayer. You can see how it's attached right there to that main tubing line, although you can use spaghetti tubing to kind of bring it a little bit further away. It can be used in larger plant beds to water an area. So if you have a perennial bed or something like that, where something like this sprayer here that sprays 10 feet can reach multiple plants, you can use that. And there's also different heads that you can use to water right at the base of certain plants as well. So it's pretty flexible in its use. Many systems are really easy to connect with your outdoor hose bib. You can see in the graphic here how you can really set it up quite easily. And then we always do recommend that you use a timer, and that would be connected between that hose bib and right where that poly tubing comes off and starts the system. That just makes it easier to use. You can also connect your micro irrigation to an existing sprinkler system. So you can connect existing lines like you see in the photos here. You can retrofit, and retrofit means change out, add attachments, that sort of thing, to an entire system. So an entire zone you could change out from, maybe you had pop-up sprayers in landscape bed, and that's one zone. You can take all those pop-ups and transition that entire zone into micro irrigation by maybe capping heads that are existing or changing out some fittings and that sort of thing. And there's companies that are out there that can offer assistance and kits to make those conversions easy. As you can see, there's lots of different ways you can use micro irrigation in your home landscape, from containers to vegetable gardens to landscape beds. There is some maintenance you need to think about with your micro irrigation system, and the main one here is frequent inspection, particularly if you have any of those systems where the tubing is buried under mulch or soil. You need to really check and make sure that if you see some decline in plant health or something not going on, or something is going on, that you tackle it to make sure that emitter is not plugged or something like that. It's harder to do that if you have an inline drip system, whereas you can see in the photo here, you know, if a micro spray emitter is not functioning, it's pretty easy to pinpoint once you turn the system on. You know, it's not moving, and you can figure out if it's clogged there. You also have to be really careful with all of these parts. It's pretty soft plastic, so any mowing, edging, I mean, even shovels, small hand shovels can cause damage to these, the poly tubing. So it's real important that you be careful digging or working around any landscape areas where you have micro irrigation. And then we always encourage everyone to use a timer, because with these systems, whether they're a micro sprayer as you see here, or if they're buried under the soil or mulch and you don't see them running and they're not connected to your sprinkler system, you might not know if they've been running for an hour or 2 hours. So it's really important to use a timer so that you're making sure that you're still following all of the watering guidelines that we recommend, because the point with the micro irrigation is to apply it appropriately and to follow all those guidelines. And we don't want to be over irrigating our plant material just because we're using a micro irrigation system. And many of the timers are battery operated if you're hooking up a system to an outdoor hose bib. And you can see an example of one of the battery operated timers here. They're pretty easy to use. And we have information on teaching you how to use a timer like this, or even your automatic sprinkler system timer if you choose to use one of your zones on that to set up your micro irrigation. So just a little recap here, you'll see what we discussed today, the different advantages, types of micro irrigations. Thank you so much for joining us.